Wow. Okay, welcome back. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm John Tobacco. Down now in free fall, down 250, and after being up 350 this morning, that's 600 points of regurgitation of artificially inseminated markets, with the Fed continuing to pump money into the markets. I'd stay away from it if I were you. Keep a close eye on it. Okay. Now, just about a year ago, it was the summer of love. We were a new show on Newsmax TV, and we were bringing in all these great commentators. And before the hypocrisy was so bad, before people couldn't even have a conversation, we had two great and notable guests that used to mix it up with the best of them. And then once in a while, after the show, they'd go across the street and wax poetic for 4 or 5 hours about their philosophical and political differences, but proved that all Americans with different points of view can still be friends. And great commentators and great guys. They join us again today to mix it up. Walker Bragman, independent journalist and not an attorney. And Jadan Horyn, contributor to Metropolitan Magazine, conservative commentator. And both guys, great friends of the show. Frankie's with us, so it's a veritable Hollywood Squares of Mix It Up today. And guys, thanks a lot. So I guess the lead story that we went with today was the Supreme Court ruling on DACA. Walker, I'm happy with the ruling myself, which I think most Americans should be. How surprised were you to see, two justices side with the more left-leaning judges?
I don't think I wasn't all that surprised. It was, I think it was the right decision. It seemed a fairly obvious one that when administrative agencies make changes, they cannot be arbitrary or capricious. That's the legal term of art. It's the Trump administration didn't really offer any real justification for its change. It was pretty clearly a political move, and I thought it was the right decision, but not surprising.
Jadan, how did you feel about that? That was a big thing in the election. Judges. And it looks like John Roberts has now become the big swing vote, but Gorsuch also went with him.
Yeah, so I really think that the ruling in that case fundamentally comes down to the court applying a legal principle to an unconstitutional executive order that exceeded the authority of the previous president. And while I understand that they are ruling on the procedure, they have yet to actually articulate a ruling. They've denied cert multiple times, and they're actually taking up and deciding whether or not the original DACA executive order was constitutional or not. And they actually dodged that very question in this ruling as well. What they really said was, and I agree with Walker, that we should not have our government rescind or make executive orders. Agencies should not do so in an arbitrary and capricious way without an explanation to the American people to whom they are responsible. At the same time, the court missed an opportunity to declare that the underlying executive order lacked legal force and was explicitly, the executive was explicitly not given the authority by Congress to defer any types of deportations.
Well, it's almost irrelevant because on the one hand, Congress is given charge of determining which classes of citizens will be, denied admission, but the president really is in charge of enforcing those laws that are on the books. So, and he's got wide discretion to do so. Now, we can have a conversation about whether or not administrative agencies should play such a big role in effectively legislating and enforcing. That's a conversation that could take all day, weeks. However, it is interesting to me that that conservatives I've talked to are all worked up about DACA and say, oh well, it was unconstitutional. It was unconstitutional from the start. And what a gross excess of political authority. But I would hope that that standard would then be applied to the wars that continue despite lack of constitutional grounding and legal force, the domestic surveillance that's infringing on our privacy rights, And, I mean, there are a lot of ways that the executive has grown in authority over the last 4 decades that maybe we should be talking about.
Bipartisan, by the way, under both Democrats and Republicans, that executive power has continued to grow to almost monarchical levels. One area that I know you guys agree on, even though you come at it from very different perspectives, is your opinion of Joe Biden. Neither of you are fans of Joe Biden. I am curious, though, that if you were forced to give Joe Biden advice on who he should pick to be his running mate to get the most political value and have the best chance at winning the election, who would you suggest? Walker, as somebody that was a proud Bernie supporter and somebody that a lot of the Biden people are trying to get as part of their coalition, let's start with you. Who do you think he should pick?
I don't think the Biden people are trying to get me as part of their coalition.
I think they are. If the left wing is not voting for Joe Biden, he's got no chance.
I first of all, polls look really good for Joe Biden right now. So better in some cases than it did for Hillary, which is good. But there is still this enthusiasm gap, which I think you might be sort of hinting at. But as far as advice for Biden's team for who to pick, Warren or Abrams, I think those are I think the obvious choice for VP would be Bernie, but because Biden said that he's going to pick a woman, like those are the two options. I would not go with Kamala Harris. I think that there's, having done a lot of reporting on Kamala Harris, I know that there's a wealth of material out there that will not be, it won't be great. And also, if you're trying to, and I mean, presumably picking a woman of color, you're trying to appeal to voters of color, and Harris did not perform well among Black voters specifically. So, yeah. So I don't know. I guess those would be my two.
How about you, Jaden?
Well, my choice before was Amy Klobuchar because it kind of re-solidifies, his whole appeal to the center. I think he needs to shore up his left side, and that's why we've seen him attempt to move and take on, essentially policing issues and civil rights and restorative and racial justice issues. But, he's an inauthentic person to do that. He's the architect of, the 94 crime bill. And if he picks Kamala Harris, then he's essentially picking someone who incarcerated Black and brown people, which I think would be idiotic. But at the same time, he's backed himself into a corner. He has to choose a woman because he said so. And now it looks like he needs to choose someone of color. So that really narrows who he has. Maybe the governor of New Mexico or, senator from Nevada, Cortez Masto. But to me, that would be a type of pandering that I think would come across as inauthentic.
Yes. Right I wonder, if they're trying to appeal to African American voters. Joe Biden was the author of the 94 crime bill, and as Walker Bragman just said, Kamala Harris was a prosecutor for years and years. I don't think the far left is going to love, such a law and order pairing in this time of defund the police. Is that the major flaw there, Walker, that you see? Will come out?
Well, I think as somebody who has done a lot of reporting on Harris, I think she's a new to the national stage, so that's she has a lot of time to sort of build a legacy. I guess her career it seems to just be starting.
Well, as an activist, yeah.
On the other hand, if you look at her past and her background, she has repeatedly come up against systemic issues and taken aim at those issues and repeatedly misfired. For example, she looked at prison overcrowding in California, and her response to that was, well, we're going to target recidivism rates, or reoffense rates. And the program that she came up with was a drug reentry program for first-time nonviolent drug sales offenders. That program is called Back on Track. It's been lauded by, everybody. Most of the coverage of this program has been very positive. However, I looked into it and I looked into the numbers, and essentially, these people were offered a choice. You either plead guilty and get deferred into this program, which is very strict, and you have to meet a rigid set of requirements.
10 seconds, Walker. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, ultimately, the prison population in California continues to rise through the program. Most people don't graduate from it, according to the numbers that I was able to get. And it just seems like recidivism without targeting over-criminalization is not an effective strategy at reducing prison.
All right, boys, we got to leave it there. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks so much for your commentary and always for joining us for a Liquid Lunch. Walker Bragman, Jadan, Horyn, and Frank Morano and I will join you again right after this.